Jagex has just recently released a new poll blog about Raids 3 rewards with one particular, very nasty change. They are offering to replace the old Mega Rare Raid Rewards staff, the Tumeken's Heka, with a new staff called the Shadow of Tumeken. This thing is an absolute bruiser and makes the Heka look like an absolute joke. It seems like my past Heka discussion video hit Jagex's ears in one way or another, as they've decided to go in the direction I figured they had to, punching through monsters' mage defense. I'll be talking about the Heka quite a bit in this video, but it takes too long to explain how it worked. If you want to see how the old staff work, check out my other gear discussion video at the top right before this one. How does the Shadow work? This is a completely different staff, being two-handed and with a flat 5 tick attack speed, 35 mage attack, and no inherent mage strength. At 99 magic, this staff has a base max hit of 34 over Sang's base max of 32. Yes, that is low, we'll go over that. This is a powered staff similar to the Sang, or what the Heka would have been, but it has a unique passive effect, kind of like the Twisted Bow. It multiplies magic accuracy and strength bonus of your gear by triple, including Slayer Helmet or Salve. This means should you be able to pack a significant amount of magic switches, the effectiveness of the staff goes up dramatically. My favorite thing about the Shadow is how it doesn't take 30 minutes to read about and understand what it does. The Heka of Tumeken is a wand-like magical weapon. For a more visual example, magic, it goes 20 damage, it has a built-in spell, charges mage strength no longer applies uniquely. For the lunar spell, your force and more powerful attack. What I love about this staff is how it encourages maximum mage switches, whereas typically that is where you skimp the most. It also gives major benefits to things like Ancestral Hat, Seer's Ring, and Brimstone Ring, which typically are worthless. It also encourages using less tanky gear, which makes it an interesting choice in places like God Wars Dungeon. Take more damage, but also deal much more. Not to mention, it is powerful. This thing is going to be best in slot at a multitude of bosses, and I'll quickly go over them. Jagex neglected quite a few in the news post. Anywhere harm was BIS, this is now BIS by roughly 4%. Not forgetting the fact you can also use thralls with this, I'm not going to factor that in. My calculations assume best gear for any style. Basori's with ranged, Torva with melee, and Ward with Sang. Kraken is that flat 4% better. Zulrah is only 1% better on green phase, but it's 22% better on crimson phase due to the accuracy. The one place harm still has use is Scorpia, and Ice Demon for obvious reasons, as you can't really bring the full switch necessary to make the Shadow powerful. At Thermi, harm was roughly equal to Scythe, but now it is significantly better at 6% better than Scythe. This has overthrown other Slayer bosses as well. At Sire, this is now about equal to Scythe when one hammer has landed, so camping magic there will be perfectly viable. At Calfight Queen on P2, the Shadow beats Pipe on no hammers, but may be the best option regardless because you can walk under KQ with it. It beats harm at Dagonoth Rex by 2%, Sang by 13%. The Shadow will actually be best at every single God Wars Dungeon boss. At Zami, it beats T-Bow by 8% on task, or 16% off task. Arma is similar. It beats Chinning by 5% on task, or 4.5% off task, although the loss of defense at Arma will be painful. For Bandos, it beats Bofa by a disgusting 29%. Even if you land 2 hammers, the staff beats Bofa regardless. Finally, at Sarah, it beats T-Bow by a flat 5%. Its only use in theater is on Sodetseg if no hammers landed, where it beats Scythe. So I kind of doubt it will be even taken into top. In Chambers, however, it is a different story. I'm going to be assuming CMs and you're overloaded for my calcs. The interesting bosses here are Melee Vanguard, where it beats Sang by a whopping 34%. Vespula Portal, beating T-Bow by 24%. Mystics, somehow, where it beats T-Bow by 21%. That's that Salve triple damage bonus coming in. It technically beats Pipe against Baby Mudda for BIS by 3%. And finally, on Old Mage Hand, it beats Sang by 28%. Finally, a couple of other miscellaneous things I did calcs on. Against a fully drained Corp, it actually beats Sammy Spear and Max Melee by about 3%. Magic does still do full damage against Corp. The Fang is still worse than Zami Spear at max drain, as the accuracy stops mattering, and Z-Spear has higher max hit. The staff will be absolutely amazing for Dolo Corp on an ult. It also beats T-Bow at Mole by 0.5%. Probably just use whatever has cheapest supply cost. Finally, I checked some Slayer mobs just for fun. You would probably never use a weapon of this caliber on weak little Slayer monsters, but why not take a look? The notable ones I checked are Skeletal Wyverns, 20% better than Lance or DHCB, and Gargoyles, where it slightly beats an Uncharged Scythe. Neither of those are exceptional. 3 paragraphs to list the places it's good in my script. That is such a landslide better than the Heka, which did not introduce any new bosses Magic would be good at and was purely a slightly better harm with some awkward utility and difficult to use attack speed. For comparison, Heka was the new Biss at Scorpia. Zulrah, maybe it would have been awkward to use with her diving. Tob Nylos, Olm Mage Hand, Melee Vanguards, Thermi, and Dagonoth Rex. Only bosses that Magic was already good at by a slight margin, which was very boring in my opinion. The utility of Heka was interesting, but realistically, the marginal spellbook effects would have been near useless on all of those bosses, with the Archaeos spellbook being the only one used, likely. The design of the Shadow is much simpler than the Heka, but deceptively complex at the same time. There's going to be times where you don't want to use it even if it is the best in slot option, due to worse defense and requiring many switches to be effective. I love the idea of a glass cannon style meta for Magic to rise up. As someone who dolos a lot of bosses, Heal Other is going to become much more important. It's very neat to see a weapon avoid regular defense for the most part as well. This is why it's so good at bosses that can't be drained, like Arma. The thought process with the old staff was, can I use this thing with a variable attack speed at this location or not, and is my spellbook correct? Rather than something a lot more substantial like worrying about additional damage from gear you are wearing or what switches you'll be bringing. Do I have any qualms with the Shadow? Yes, I have a few. The fact it's two-handed is a little weird. This makes the ward drop from Raids 3 much less substantial, effectively only boosting the Sang's DPS. Maybe it would make more sense to make it one-handed, but with a slightly lower multiplier, like 2.5 times? Although a one-handed 5-tick weapon would also be a little weird, I'm not sure. I also would have preferred a more interesting effect, like actually draining magic levels from the boss you are attacking, or having some kind of ramp-up of damage or accuracy over time. Although they may have designed it in this way to avoid it becoming too complicated, which I respect as well. All in all, I think the Shadow would be an excellent addition to the game, a huge improvement over the Heka. It's good to see Jagex take a step back from their stance on the Heka and respect the community feedback. The Shadow will still need to pass a poll to replace the Heka. Hopefully they make this poll a 50-50 vote as a choice between the two instead of 75-25 yes or no, which wouldn't make much sense, and I could see possibly failing if that were the case. I also want to briefly mention the other changes to Raids 3 that were introduced in the poll blog as well. First is the Osmumten's Fang, which was changed a little bit. This is the 5-tick hyper-accurate one-handed spear they were going to add. Instead of having a ridiculous 175 stab bonus, it will now have 105 stab bonus, and the melee strength was reduced to 103, but reroll for accuracy if it fails the first roll. This actually makes it a bit more accurate than it was before, as well as not awkwardly having a million stab bonus. I think this is a good change thematically, but the reduction from 115 strength to 103 is a little strange. Maybe it was beating Rapier in too many places from their calcs with the new change? This makes it worse DPS than Zamispear on Corp as well if he is fully drained, which is quite odd. But it is also far more DPS than it was on Nex due to her insane defense. I'd regard this as a neutral change in my eyes. It already was a fairly niche weapon, and this kind of just solidifies it further in that category. Although I do expect it to be useful inside of Raids 3 itself. Finally, they are adding the 4th slot Rune Pouch upgrade. People were asking for this to be added with Guardians of the Rift, but Raids 3 was also a prime candidate for a reward of this magnitude. A 4th slot in the Rune Pouch seems very simple, but it dramatically boosts methods like spellbook swapping and any use of the Archaeos spellbook with Thralls and Death Charge, because that requires at least 5 rune slots. Alts can now hold the runes for Spec Transfer and Heal Other all in one pouch as well, which is very neat. It's only 1 slot lost to taking Thralls and Death Charge instead of 2, making these spells far more viable at many locations. Also, you can't forget to mention they are pulling the Breach of the Scarab for the Keris Partisan, which will further buff its effectiveness against Cal fights by giving it a 33% accuracy multiplier. I checked the numbers on this one. Assuming I'm doing my math right, it is dramatically better than Scythe on KQ. At 1 hammer, the Partisan should be 100% accurate on task, making it already better than a 2-hammer Scythe with no hammers landed for the Keris. There's quite a bit of potential with the massive max hit of the Keris. I think the insane increase to accuracy will see us bringing Torva instead of Inquisitors as well, since the hammer hit is much less impactful. Torva is barely worse than Inquis at 0 hammer and much better at 1 hammer plus. This also allows us to bring claws, which are further boosted by Torva, and those can be used after one hammer hit, similar to Sire. KQ is going to get absolutely decimated by combination of Keris Partisan on P1 along with Shadow of Tumeken on P2. Roughly a 20% total DPS increase with Raid's 3 items. If you're watching this video around when it goes up, I will be live on Twitch. I'll be going for a mix of Inferno and possibly finishing out my Master Combat achievements if my team logs in. Okay. And that's it for the video. Leave a like if you liked it, and or subscribe. Thanks, guys.